Hello everyone, welcome back. Let's take a look at a new passage today. We're going to be focusing on the rhetorical skills questions, and we'll be learning and training ourselves to spot the right questions for the right answers. Okay, let's move on to the passage. Question 1. This is a punctuation question related to the use of comma. All right, let's look at the underlined portion. At 5 p.m. on June 3rd, 1875, thousands of residents spilled out onto the streets of Amsterdam. Okay, so a prepositional phrase starting with at up until 1875, right, is giving the context, okay, giving the context before the main sentence starts, okay? So this prepositional phrase, okay, when it introduces the main sentence, we set it off using a comma, right? That was the first comma rule that we learned. Okay, and then let's look within this prepositional phrase, okay? There's at 5 p.m., okay, time, right? And then there is a date, right? We do separate times and dates using a comma. So this is a correct use. And then we separate dates from years using a comma as well, okay? So that's all correct, okay? Comma after 5 p.m., comma after June 3rd, and then we need a comma after this whole phrase, setting it off from the main sentence. So the answer here is G. Okay, let's give a quick glance at the other answer choices. Okay, H and J both contain a comma after thousands, okay? And thousands, okay, is modified by of residents, right? So if you have the subject and it's being modified using of and then residents, okay, in this format, we don't need to separate it, okay? We can use it all in one connection, okay? All right. Question 2. Question 2 is about punctuation, okay? All right, let's look at the underlying portion. The city was anticipating an unthinkable engineering feat, the completion of the first route of the Amsterdam train system, okay? So in this sentence structure, you see an independent clause, okay? Right? The city was anticipating an engineering feat. What was that feat? That feat is answered in the phrase that occurs afterwards. That feat was the completion of the first route of the Amsterdam train system. So essentially, we have feat, a word here, in the first independent clause, and then what occurs afterwards is equivalent to the feat, right? What's the great accomplishment? The completion of the first route of the train system, right? Okay, so if this is the construction of the sentence, okay, it is much more appropriate to use a colon, okay, right? Because first of all, we use a semicolon only when we are trying to link in between two independent clauses. Here, the completion of the first route of the Amsterdam train system is not an independent clause, right? It is missing a verb, okay? Second of all, okay, a colon is more appropriate because we use a colon when we are giving an independent clause, and then there's some kind of a question-answer sort of a format, okay? The city was anticipating an unthinkable engineering feat. What's that feat? The feat is the completion, okay? If that's the context or the content that we're trying to link, that's when we use a colon, okay? In contrast, we use a semicolon when we have two sentences that are very close in terms of their meaning, okay? That have a very close relationship to one another, okay? So, in this case, because of the rule that there needs to be two independent clauses in order to use a semicolon, we cannot use a semicolon, and it would be more preferable to use a colon. Okay, in the same sense, we cannot use over, okay, in B, because we're not talking about a feat over the completion. The feat is the completion, okay? So this would be an incorrect usage of the word over, okay? Also, we cannot just link feet the completion of, okay? There needs to be some kind of a linkage between feet and the completion, okay? So either we need a conjunction or a preposition or something of that sort in order to make sure the readers know how the completion is related to the feet, right? So D is incorrect. So the correct answer here is C. Question 3. This is a rhetorical skills question related to strategy. The writer is concerned about the level of detail in the preceding sentence and is considering deleting the phrase "the first root of" from it. If the writer were to make this deletion, the paragraph will primarily lose information that. Okay, if you come across this phrase, primarily lose, okay, we learned in the previous lecture that we're going to consider it as a question asking, what's the function of the given phrase? Okay, so let's go to the passage. The given phrase is here, right? The first route of the Amsterdam train system, okay? And what's the function of this phrase? Within the sentence, right, it's giving detail, right, that it was the first route out of other routes, right? So there were other routes to come, okay? But then out of the subsequent routes that were built somewhere along the history, this celebration at 5 p.m. on June 3rd was celebrating the first one, okay? Okay, so that detail is what's being presented by the phrase, the first route of the Amsterdam train system. Okay, so let's look at the answer choices. F says, reveals how expansive the Amsterdam tram would become. This is definitely correct in a sense because we know it's first, meaning there must have been others that subsequently come. Okay, so there's going to be more than one route that will be developed in the future. So in that sense, it does reveal more of an expansiveness. However, it's not complete to reveal how expansive it would be. Those details will come later on in the passage. Okay? This merely hints that there's more than one route, but we don't know how expansive it's going to be yet. How about G? Clarifies that only part of the tram system had been complete by June 3rd, 1875. This is correct because it's not the whole tram system that's been completed by June 3rd. There's definitely other routes that will be complete in the future, right? So the first route is definitely just one part of the entire tram system that will be developed, okay? So G is definitely true. H makes clear that by June 3rd, 1875, construction of the second section of the tram was already underway, okay? So we don't know anything about the second section of the tram, so H is not the right answer. J provides evidence that Amsterdam residents at this event believed the entire tram system was complete. We don't really know about the beliefs of residents at this point through this detailed phrase, right? So we're going to eliminate J. So the best answer out of F and G is G. Clarifies that only part of the tram system had been complete by June 3rd, 1875. Question 4. This is a rhetorical skills style question. Okay. Let's look at the underlined portion. I'm going to read from the first route. The first route took 45 minutes for a round trip, which ran from City Hall to 167th Street in under an hour. Okay. All right, so we see under an hour, which indicates the duration of time it takes for a round trip from City Hall to 167th Street. Okay. However, as we read in the very beginning of this very sentence, okay, we saw 45 minutes, which is also a duration of time indicating the same thing, the duration of time for a round trip, right? So these two are redundant. What do we do with redundancy? We delete it, okay? So delete the underlined portion. Okay, let's take a look at the other answer choices though. B says, in the completion of its round trip, okay? Round trip completion of round trip was already mentioned here. So these two would be redundant. Okay. How about C? In 45 minutes. Okay. That was also mentioned here. So it's redundant. So we're left with the correct answer, which is D. Delete the entire portion. Question 5. This is a rhetorical skills strategy question. Okay. Which choice would most effectively conclude the sentence by indicating clearly how the subway could address the problem described in the first part of the sentence? Okay. So this question is asking us for a revised conclusion, okay, if needed. Why? Because the conclusion, the writer would like to include in the conclusion about how subway is going to solve the problem. What problem? What's the problem in the first part of the sentence? The problem was given here, right? Traffic jams. Okay? So 5 is asking us, okay, is the conclusion telling us how traffic jam is being resolved? Okay? Let's check. Hundreds and thousands of residents could now be free. Wow, resolved, right? From traffic jams. How? By traveling on the tram tracks, okay? By using the subway as the method, right? It clearly fits the author's intent, okay? Let's consider the other options though. G says, traveling more effectively. Well, traveling more effectively does not let us know that it was indeed the subway that allowed us to solve the problem, right? It just says we travel more effectively. So there's no mention of subway or the tram tracks, okay, being the solution. So G is not the right answer. H, trying something new, okay? We don't know what something new is. Something new could be, having more stations, or it could be, having the people be more joyous because of the new subway. So we don't really know the clear resolve to the problem of traffic jams, okay? So it does not clearly indicate how the subway was addressing the problem. So H is not the right answer. J, hundreds and thousands of residents could now be free from traffic jams by using a system, okay? Here we're missing what? A mentioning of tram or subway, okay? So it does not make it clear how the subway, okay, resolved the traffic jam situation. So the only answer we have is F, no change.